All right, Amir. It is another great one. It is Saturday afternoon. I just finished this morning. I went to practice, choked some people out. I had a protein shake and some Tylenol, so I am ready to go. Been a great day, and I'm just curious today, Amir. What's on your mind today?
Renard, you know what? Every time I meet you and you and I sit down here and talk, I love the fact that you have done something amazing right beforehand. So, what I'm thinking about today, I think, is a great segue into exactly that. I've been thinking about my time in the dojo. And when I was a color belt, just walking in, looking at all the black belts around me, and mind you, whenever you walk into an adult class, there aren't too many black belts in there. Most of the folks in there, they're color belts. And I'm pretty sure it's the same for you. So I was just thinking back on my experience as a color belt student and just asking myself, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could just be one of those black belts? And then you see the little stripes on the belt. There's like one, two, three. Some of them had even five and six. And then you're like, oh, this person might be even, a master of some kind, because that's a specific rank, at least in Taekwondo. So it got me thinking, when I'm in corporate, when I'm working, titles make a huge difference. We aspire to be in that title. But how do we actually get there? And in the dojo, it's usually our instructor. And my instructor used to tell me, find another black belt that you resonate with, and that person can mentor you about how you can get better as a practicing martial artist. And that got me thinking that, that's not a whole lot different in our own corporate lives. I mean, what do you think? Mentorship and the power of mentorship in your career. Um, any ideas, thoughts there?
I think it's for me. I've had great mentors throughout my career. I've been lucky enough to have great mentors. I probably have had great mentors and what I say bad mentors of showing what not to do moving up in your career. And I think mentorship is a real big thing that most people need to have throughout their career because you learn from somebody who's already been there, who's already had the battles, who's already had the bumps and bruises, if you're talking about jujitsu, but also just in their career who started from the bottom, maybe, like for us, it's IT and started from the service desk and moved their way up and now they're an executive, they're CTO, CIO, etc. So they have all this experience and knowledge. So I think mentorship is great. I've been lucky to mentor people throughout my career because I think paying it forward, giving it back is one of the unwritten rules as a leader that you should strive for. And I can name several mentors that I've had along the way. Some of them did not know they were mentors for me. It's like you say, you watch them and you seen what they did, and you was like, man, I want to do that. I want to do what they are doing. So it's something that you gravitate to. So who are some of the great mentors for you? Give me one person that stands out for you that's been a great mentor for you throughout your career.
Oh my gosh. I've had several just like you, and every chapter in my journey, I had somebody who helped me in a specific way. The one person I'm thinking about right now, her name is Kim, and she's been a fantastic mentor as far as I'm concerned. She's an executive. She's been an executive for many, many years, leads in a PE-backed company today. And I've been able to, just been so grateful having her leadership and her mentorship. Years ago, when I first interacted with her, she was a VP in a manufacturing company, and the way she presented herself as a leader, the way she invited people to learn, continuously build that muscle in their craft, was at the time sort of new to me. And it was like, wow, you can have an executive who's actually, you know, acting like a three-dimensional human being, not that other executives weren't, but you felt a kind of warmth in her leadership that I didn't really experience a whole lot of. This is not to say that she was the only one, but she definitely stood out for me. And to this day, we interact and we talk, but she'd be one person who I'd use as an example who modeled what good leadership looked like, modeled what you should do as a leader in order to grow an organization that's high performing?
I like it. I like it. So for me, I'll go all the way back. I'll go to when I just started in IT. I was working at LSU Health Science Center, and I probably said this a million times. Worked with a guy named Brian Birch. Still communicate with him every so often to this day. He was one of those people who took out of his time to teach me everything that he knew. He was like, I'm going to teach you everything that I know. And I was in college at the time, and it helped me so much in college because I was already ahead of the curve. I was already, learning so much. So by the time I went to school, boom, I knew what was going on. But the thing about mentorship, someone makes a decision and they see something greater in you than you see yourself. That's the beautiful thing about it. And with Brian, he did not have to do that. And that's the thing I tell anybody about mentorship. Your mentor does not have to do this. It's not something they choose to do this. They see something great in you. They want to see you do, reach the highest heights that you can in your career. And Brian did that for me. He helped me getting my way through college, understanding what it's going to look like when I graduate into a new career. So it was great for me. He was a great mentor to start off my career, and he's a reason that I pay it forward so much. So I always tell anybody, if you want to find a mentor, look and see what they do first. See how they work, see how they talk to other people, and that's the person that you want to reach out to and talk about mentorship.
Wow. That's such a powerful story. So Brian is a huge influence for you then.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I probably have talked about him multiple times, to be honest. And you think about it, I've been in tech for 25 years. To talk about somebody who I met when I was still in college, who helped mentor me, that was a big impact for me. Big impact in my life because I was in college. I was working at the same time, like I said, at LSU Health Science Center back home in New Orleans, and he took the time out to teach me when he did not have to do that. And he also instilled in me paying it forward. So that's been my thing every time. Anytime I learn something, I want to give to somebody else. Anytime I learn something on the mats, I want to teach somebody else. So that's, I would say, out of many mentors I have, that's the start of me changing my outlook on everything and wanting to pay it forward going after that.
That paying it forward concept, I 100% subscribe to that too. I think, like any good instructor, like let's switch to the dojo for a second here. You're in the dojo, you're teaching a student, and this person is obviously latching onto every single word that you're saying. And in my mind, when I am in that environment where I'm providing instruction and mentorship and running a class, I want to make sure that the skills that I'm imparting is going to protect them, because that's what we do ultimately in martial arts. We're learning how to defend ourselves. So there's the sport aspect of it as well, which is how do I engage in a safe environment versus how do I engage when I'm in trouble? And just from that lens, just to be able to say, okay, here is a person who is going to use what you tell them, puts you in a position of tremendous power. So to me, that mentor is that person who is making sure that this person, when they're presented with real life situation, that they can actually, uh, I guess the best way to put it would be navigate the circumstance or navigate the situation. And that to me is the power of mentorship, being able to, whether it's corporate leadership and saying, how do you lead a high performance team or hire a high performance team, or just even a single presentation to an executive who wants to get a status update from you, right? So all of those things I think are just such a powerful way in which mentors can help.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And the funny thing is, even today, when I was training today, I got to teach at the same time, which I love to do. It keeps me sharp at the same time because you train so much, but all of a sudden you got to teach somebody that you've been working on the stuff you're working on. It's very different. So seeing, like I say, seeing something great in someone else, the lower belts, now that I'm a black belt, I want to make sure, hey, they're not doing the same mistakes that I was doing along the way. But, I got to teach somebody just a little couple intricate things in there, and it changed their whole game while they were rolling after that. And the smile on my face just seeing that was like, man, okay. In a sense, you start thinking, man, I know what I'm doing a little bit. I taught somebody a little change here that I learned, and man, they just took hold of it and just keep getting better. And that also keeps me going back to the mat. It's not just the training, it's the mentorship and the teaching of someone else that keeps me going back. And I did not know that I wanted to be, I never thought I was going to be somebody who's going to be a mentor. Didn't think that was gonna happen. And of course, when you just start in tech, that's not something you think about. You just like, hey, I'm just starting. I need a job. Hopefully, I do well. No one fires me at some point. Um, but when you start seeing the right people, and I'm gonna say great leaders, that's what I'm gonna say. When you see great leaders, you want to start talking to them and see what's going on, in their mind. How are they handling these issues, etc. So in a sense, you're mentally writing down the playbook from your mentor in order for you to get better. And they always say, for you to get better, you have to play with better people. Same thing when it comes into, the corporate world. In order for you to get better, you need to start talking to the best executives, the best directors, the best VPs, etc. You need to start having those conversations with them and ask them just on a day to day, how did they get better? And they start giving you that information. Start learning from them, and it will change your outlook going forward at the end of the day. And I think we need more people, we need more mentors. Everybody needs more mentors, because then that pay it forward cycle that I keep talking about will keep happening and keep happening. Because at the end of the day, when you decide to go off to another company, you decide to retire, your mentorship is going to be so key for the next person up. So I always say, and I will tell anybody, mentorship is an honor, it's a privilege, and more people should gravitate to it in order to keep that paying it forward cycle going.
Yeah. That word privilege is such a powerful word. And, I want to pick on that for just a little bit because, when I think about mentorship, it changes me as a mentor. So whenever I mentor someone, the first thing I always tell them that this is a two-way conversation. Just as much as you will benefit from this, I too am going to benefit and I too will change in this experience because it's difficult, in fact, impossible to anticipate what this other person will say or ask you. So just having that privilege in the beginning to be approached with mentorship, I think is such a powerful signal to an individual. And once that individual engages someone, it comes back to the point you're making, which is, paying it forward. We can't pay it forward unless there is a recipient on the other end. So that to me is how you actually grow in strength as a community, as a company, is are you allowing people to identify mentorship opportunities specifically? And are you able as an individual then to identify the right kind of mentor? Because it's one thing to, if I think about the dojo, it's a pure environment. You have belts on, you know who the best people are, or at least the most experienced people, and you can gravitate towards them. You know nothing, there's no preconceived notion. You're just a bowl looking for something to fill it with, right? So that's that knowledge. Corporate, you've got education behind you, you've got awareness, internships, and all that. So you're not walking in with an empty bowl. You have an idea. You want to be able to present a certain persona. You want to be able to lead in a specific way or just even show up in a specific way. So let me throw a question back at you then, Renard.
Okay.
We know about the dojo, you and I, but let me ask you this. What advice would you give somebody who is, not an empty bowl or an empty vessel walking into corporate? How would you tell them that, hey, these are some of the ways in which you can identify a mentor that's right for you in your current chapter of your career.
Oh, that's a great question. You know, someone who's, I guess you would say, already had some experiences already. They're not brand new. They've gone through a couple of bumps in the road here and there, like we always do. I would say first, be an active listener, meaning listen to and sit around in those meetings, etc. You know that you normally have. You might be a person who that's your director, that's the VP, etc. Start doing that, and I'll even go back a little bit. It does not have to be your mentor. Doesn't have to be someone who works at the same company with you. Doesn't have to be. Sometimes you're lucky enough it is, but it doesn't have to be. But I would tell anybody, go with an open mind. Even though you're a seasoned, IC, you might be even a seasoned manager. Go in with an open mind and learn about some of the people that you think potentially could mentor you. Learn the background about them, and then start having those conversations, because like I said earlier, I was like, some mentors are going to be great mentors. Some people you watch from afar are great mentors of what not to do, if that makes sense. I think you have to watch that as well. In my career, I watched great leaders, and I also watched the ones that did not do so well, and I learned from them as well. So learn from the great ones and learn from the bad ones, because those are the ones that's going to show you what not to do when they can't um, get their team together, and their team doesn't feel like it's family, in a sense. You want to watch that person too, because that's something you want to say, you know what, when I get to that position, I don't want to do that as well. So sometimes you have mentors that you don't even have a conversation with, that you just watch. And I'll bring up one since we're talking about this one. When I worked at Lehigh Hanson, there was a person I call a mentor who did not even know they were a mentor of mine. Kent Pillup, he was my manager at the time, and he is the reason that I wanted to go into management slash leadership, because I watched him. I watched how he talked to us. I watched how he talked to other people, and how he easily commanded a room just off of empathy and understanding the people that worked for him. And I saw him do what he did on a regular basis. And I sat there and said, I want to do what he does. I was like, that's why I wanted to go into leadership, because I saw what he did. And I was like, man, he's a great man. He didn't even know he was a mentor of mine. Didn't even know he passed away a few years after I left the company, but he did not even know he was a mentor of mine. And I just watched him, and I just told people, I remember I came home and I was like, mentally, I was like, I want to do what he does. I want to see people grow and see the light on their face when they start working on something new, and they get excited about it, and they start upskilling. They start getting out of their comfort zone. I was like, I want to do what he does. So I would tell anybody, someone who's seasoned or not, watch, listen, and then make the decision who's going to be the mentor for you.
Wow, such a powerful example of a role model for you, Renard. I was thinking back as you were speaking about Kim. One of the things that you touched on is, mentor doesn't have to be in your own organization. And of all the mentors that I think back about in my career, most of them were not in my organization. I mean, yes, Kim was in the organization that I was in. Kim Miramontes is her name, and one of the things she told me is that your coach, you should have a coach. She told me. I was like, yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. I never even thought about it. And this was some time ago. But then I also recognized that you know coaching and mentorship are two separate things. You don't have to have that in the same person. And I'm just thinking about the example you just now brought up. This person was mentoring you, but it sounded more like this person was even coaching you from afar. So you were just watching how this person operated, and then you emulated it, practiced that craft, you brought it into your own thinking, and you said, this is how I'm going to try and replicate this in, in myself as a leader as I show up. And then, how do I then project that outwards? And I think the power of mentorship, like I've seen you interact multiple times, and I can tell, okay, this person is truly a mentor and a coach, and you can switch hats pretty quickly. So for me, just being able to have that opportunity, have that privilege with somebody like Kim, for example, and yourself with your examples, I think is such a change or game changer for us. I mean, I can't overemphasize the word game changer because I know it shaped me in a few different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll go to this since this is black belts and boardrooms, I want to ask, who was your mentor going into the dojo every day? Was it your black belt, the one who gave you yours, or was it someone else?
So my instructor is Mike Maldonado, and when I first joined his dojo and I started learning from him, he inspired me in very subtle ways. He was somebody who was curious about the martial arts, had his family and him, they all trained together, which inspired my family and I because it aligned with our values. As I shared with you before, we all trained as a family because we didn't want to be parents sitting on the sidelines on our phones. So Mike is one individual who inspired me in the way of martial arts. But even going back, as a young person, I think about, and this is not to give too much credit to Hollywood, but we all get influenced by the content we consume, to be fair. There, as children, obviously you have no sense of awareness that it's actually influencing you. So thinking back, actors like Bruce Lee, for example, or Jean-Claude Van Damme, right, just to give some references about Hollywood, those were initially who influenced me to take even a look at martial arts. But even beyond that, once I actually started practicing it, I realized that there's more to this than just the punching and the kicking or the grappling, or the workouts and how many push-ups and sit-ups you can do in a minute. All that's fine and dandy and a lot of fun and pain. But there's a whole lot more to this. There's that component of giving back, watching a student's face light up when, oh my gosh, I can do this roundhouse kick to somebody's face. What? You know, or in your case, maybe, I just did a armbar on
Mhm.
somebody before they could do anything to me. So those moments, I think, is what fuel me as an individual. And the more I realized, it made me aware about the power of leadership, and put in the right hands, given the right circumstances, with the clear vision and mission.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness, you can move people. You can move companies, cultures. There's
Mhm.
so much work that can go into having the right kind of leadership and the right kind of skills in your tool belt. And that's why, I think you and I talk about this offline quite a bit, the power of martial arts and how it
Mhm.
shaped us as leaders. But I think even beyond leadership, it's shaped us how we manage ourselves and our teams.
Yeah. I man, I know that we could sit here and we could talk about martial arts all day, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um and I'll give you one of my last mentors that I will say. And I'm gonna go in my own family about mentorship. My grandfather, Hollis Wilkins. And let me start that. So Sergeant Major Hollis Wilkins. Let me say that.
Amazing.
In the army, man, I got to watch him as being a kid, watching how he loved his wife, loved his kids, loved his grandson, and the stuff he instilled in me. The funny thing is, when I was in high school, I went to ROTC. I went to ROTC because of him, because I wanted to understand and get the values of a military setting, if that makes sense. I always called him sir out of respect. He didn't ask for it, but I knew that he loved what he did in the army, so I gave him the respect of that. And just how the things he taught me about, being a great man and loving your family, etc., and working hard. all those values came from him. He was a mentor just by being a great grandfather. That was the mentorship for that. And I don't want to get emotional on here. I get a little emotional when I talk about him. But that was my, I would say, if you just want to go all the way back to first mentor, was my grandfather, and the legacy that he left. He wound up passing at the young age of 94. Okay. 94 years old, remembered everything, still drove until he passed. And the legacy that he lived and the stuff that he instilled with me, he was my first great mentor. So that's the type of mentors you have. Sometimes it's not even in the corporate world that's your mentor. Sometimes it's just in your own family that starts instilling those great things in you for you to understand so you can keep moving on in your life just in general. How to be a great husband, how to be a great friend, how to be a great father. I always talk about those. At the end of the day, when the corporate world goes away, etc., when it's your time to go, I just want to be remembered of the things that he instilled with me was being a great husband, a great father, and a great friend. That's the power of mentorship.
Amazing. Renard, you reminded me of my grandfather as well on my father's side. And my grandfather's, so a little bit of history, right? My grandfather moved from India to Pakistan. This would have been 1947, when the British walked away from India, split it into two countries, India and Pakistan. People moved, on either side of the fence over there. So they moved from India to Pakistan, more specifically from Amritsar to Lahore. So those are different cities in the province of Punjab. Now the reason I am thinking about my grandfather right now is because I do remember as a young person just emulating some of his qualities. So think about a person who worked in the British Rail at the time before India became an independent country or Pakistan became an independent country, and then doing that and going into pharmacy, running a pharmacy store. So he knew that he needed to provide for his family, and the way he wanted to do that was create a business. So he established a pharmacy, uh, learned how to be a pharmacist, ran the shop for God, well over 40 years in the same neighborhood, in the same community. Everybody knew who he was. And everybody you spoke with, if you were in the neighborhood, you couldn't find his shop. Now, mind you, it's not as well, or Pakistan is not as well organized as America back in the 80s and 90s. So it's better now from what I hear, but if you wanted to find his shop, you could ask anybody in the community that, hey, do you know so and so and their shop? Yes. They would walk you to it. And he's seeing kids grow up to being adults and they're having kids and all that. And everybody knew who he was. And when he passed away, there was a massive crowd of people at his funeral. And he died in the ripe old age of, I want to say 93,
Mm,
well into his 90s. But one of the things that people would always say, you can set your watch by his by his schedule. You knew exactly when he was going to open his shop, when he was going to close it for lunch, when he was going to drink tea, when he was going to go blah blah blah. You name it. Like you could schedule your watch, and you knew he was going to walk a certain direction, a specific way. You knew that he was going to, ask you to do certain things at a certain time. So he wasn't remembered for his work, to your point. You don't want to be remembered by your work. I remember you saying that
mhm,
as well. You want to be remembered for being a great father, a great husband, and how, your kids think about you.
mhm,
And I'm thinking about my grandfather right now, and I'm thinking, those were exactly the qualities that he gained. Like you knew who he was as an individual. You knew how he was as a husband, as a father. You knew how he treated his grandchildren and how he spoiled them. You didn't think about him as a pharmacist. That was
mhm,
just something he did. But
mhm,
you knew exactly where you could find him if you needed anything, and there were plenty of people who needed something from him. So I think again, we're saying the same thing, but
mhm,
to the examples that we've experienced, you and I think one thing is really clear. Just having that mentor, thinking about ourselves, what is the right kind of mentor that we need today? And reflecting on ourselves and asking, what is it that I need right now, and be very intentional to want that thing. Because I hear in your stories, and similarly in the way I think about my stories, we wanted to be like someone. We wanted to emulate a specific character trait. And then we worked towards it. Whether somebody gave us coaching or not is secondary, but we wanted it. So I think the takeaway, at least for me, is have a mentor and want a mentor, because only then can you have that transformation.
Man, man, that's powerful. That is very powerful. And as we close out right now, I want to just say for people who are looking for mentors, um, like I say, be active listener. Think about some of the qualities that you want to be. If it's you want to be a leader later on in life, what are the qualities that you want to have? And look for those qualities in the people that you're trying to think about looking for mentorship, or as yourself being a mentor to someone else. So go through that time, take your time. Sometimes, like we said, it doesn't have to be a mentor at work. It could be someone outside work. It could be in the dojo. It could be on the mats, etc. But there's great people around that will are willing to take their time out and mentor you because they see greatness in you. So from black belts and boardrooms, I'm Renard. That's
I'm Amir.
Amir. Have a great one, and we will see you on the next one.